Okay, good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. My name is Basiratu Kolawole. I'm a library manager at Global Banking School. I'm here.
I'm Janice Fernandes, and I'm the Director of Library Services at Global Banking School.
Yeah. Okay, so today we are exploring a key question. Does open librarianship mean opening outward to improve access to knowledge or opening inward to enable the creation of knowledge? The idea for this topic came through a conversation with a colleague who envisioned it as opening a door to a room. The question is especially important at a time when libraries are changing our users as resources, formats, and delivery modes, as well as change expectations from students and staff. So through this presentation, we will explore both sides, consider perspectives, implications, and reflect on the value of librarianship in the era of openness. Okay, so what does open librarianship mean? Open librarianship means access. Open access means is a broad and connected set of principles. It includes open access. This includes free access to information, where it's freely accessible to users, where users can freely engage with academic content. Also includes educational resources. This includes freely usable teaching materials for learning without any cost barriers here. So vital in locations and setups where access comes with a price. For example, we pay £80,000 for 5 collections of Science Direct. When we convert that into another currency, and the amount of money we pay is unthinkable. It also involves open data, and open science. This encouraging transparency, collaboration, and reuse of knowledge. In addition to this, we also thought about open infrastructure, which refers to shared systems and platforms owned by communities rather than commercial entities. And we also look at open licensing, this such as Creative Commons, and this enables materials to be reused, adapted, and redistributed legally without any restrictions. Together, these elements form an ecosystem that supports accessibility, innovation, and equity within the knowledge landscape. Okay, so here we looked at a theoretical framework.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, commercial entities often ask, why should information be free? To explore whether open librarianship is justified, we can draw on Bolansky's and Tivnot's framework of economies of worth. So it is worth having open librarianship, right? The framework suggests that people justify their actions based on different value systems, such as creativity, tradition, public good, efficiency, and economic value. So when we apply this to librarianship, we see that open practice align with multiple forms of justification. For instance, openness supports the inspirational value of creativity and innovation, the civic value of fairness and equal access, and the industrial value of efficiency and measurable outcomes. So open librarianship is not only ethically grounded, but also professionally strategic and beneficial. So why does this question, why does it matter? So, next one. Okay, so the concept of openness is widely used in higher education, but it is often not clearly defined. At the same time, libraries are undergoing a fundamental shift. We have moved away from being collection-centered institutions to community-oriented spaces. When we think about examples like a SCONO, access scheme, academic events and library, and so forth. So we are no longer just gatekeepers of information, but facilitators of knowledge creation and sharing. So how do we think of or understand and interpret openness as academic libraries will influence our policies, our services, and finally, our professional identity. It also reflects how we demonstrate value with our institutions and to wider sector. Therefore, this question is not just theoretical, but it has a practical implication for the future of librarianship. So why opening to the outside? Opening to the outside focuses on access, visibility, impact, and equity. So libraries, as I said earlier, are not gateways to information, providing users with access to catalogs, for example, databases, and discovery tools. In an open context, this role expands to removing barriers such as paywalls, language barriers, and accessibility issues. Did you know that the Internet Archive, founded by Brewster in 1996, started with this thought: the Internet has no memory, and a move towards universal access to knowledge. Today, you can read about the Wayback Machine and the fact that it's often compared to a modern digital version of the Library of Alexandria. Both of us would like to share a personal story about our institutional repository software. In the old days, we used what we call WordPress, but it was quite basic. But when we thought of moving to a more robust system, we invited quotations from a number of vendors. So Justin Bradley from the University of Southampton was patient and kind when he introduced us to ePrints. Thinking like a librarian, with regard to frequently asked questions with a cost-effective solution designed to showcase and preserve academic research output based on Bolansky and TV Notes framework. Believe me, we were impressed, and we would like to record this as an excellent example of an open initiative. Libraries participating in consortia and partnership like JAKES share information. Thus, opening outward means ensuring knowledge is shared beyond institutional boundaries, supporting lifelong learning and contributing to society as a whole. Opening to the inside. So now let's move to opening the inside. This focuses on engagement, inclusion, empowerment, and participation. This is about enabling knowledge creation within the institution and ensuring that efficient voices are represented. Encouraging diverse perspectives, letting students have a voice and in our collection spaces and facilities should be. And we are also practicing this in GBS as well. So we at least hear from our students, see what they want from the library, what they want included, developing inclusive policies. This is what we're already doing. Whether it's decolonizing reading lists, showcasing diverse output in our repository, strengthening oral history in our archives, or advocating inclusive cataloging on our shelves. In a world where information is power, such initiatives challenge traditional structures, why free and ensure, and that's in brackets, and ensure representation. It also involves creating collaborative ventures where students and staff can co-create knowledge, whether through exhibitions, projects, and community archives. Opening inward requires us to ask critical questions about whose voices are heard and how we can create more inclusive knowledge systems. So why opening to the inside? Internal development. Yeah, so opening to the inside also requires internal reflection. So, yeah, yeah. So why opening to the inside? Okay, so opening to the inside also requires internal reflection and development. Library must evaluate their own strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to build capacity effectively. Embedding research into practice allows librarians to contribute to evidence-based decision-making and professional knowledge. Every project must begin with a question, why? Collaboration across departments, such as with academics, IT, and student services, strengthens institutional impact, and we are already doing that at JPS. Capacity building is also essential to ensuring that staff have the skills and confidence to engage in open practice. And this is something we've done in the last year, where we looked at what we call the staff skills audit. This was to sort of have an idea of what colleagues already know, if there are any gaps. So I was part of this initiative. So had these meetings, regular meetings, trying to find out where they are in terms of their digital knowledge, what skills they will need, that sort of thing. So this should be this showed us the gaps, why being inclusive. Not everyone has that strength in, for example, in digital skills or data analysis or Power BI. So what we were looking in was in terms of combined strengths, knowledge and sharing and knowledge sharing and research purpose. Sorry to take the last slide.
I shall just continue with the rest of it. So what does it actually mean? It means sharing impact, sharing research beyond journals into blogs and podcasts and webinars and newsletters. I suppose you must have all seen LinkedIn now. LinkedIn is no more the place you went to when you wanted a job. I think LinkedIn is the place you go to when you have a job and you want to know more about the professional environment. I go there to look for conferences. I go there to look for funding. I go to look for speakers. And I think that's the shift, is that we're looking inwards and we're looking at other platforms to showcase what we need to do. It's also building partnerships, inviting our students to co-create with us. What would you like to see on our shelves? It's also influencing practice and policy. I know a lot of organizations, including mine. The librarian is part of the curriculum review. I sit on all those curriculum review boards. I sit on those academic boards. And I think we have a voice. And I think the voice is coming from within. It's coming from the organization, but it's also coming from the library. And that, I think, is our strength. That is the value of librarianship. And I feel very proud to say that today. We are doing a lot of things. We are demonstrating impact. We are showing our visibility and engagement. Just put together a couple of slides comparing opening to the outside and opening to the inside. I think it's the impact where opening to the inside is your internal impact, your institutional impact. Opening to the outside is your engagement and your influence. Very important today. Also looking at lots of other balances, things like what the opening to the inside does is a sort of a self-reflection. It helps you to look for what your services are providing, what are you doing in terms of outcomes. And I think it's not just the MEQs or the NHS. Those are just statistics. I think your influence goes a lot more. When a student, when an alumni comes back to you after 10 years and says, thank you for the influence that you had on my life, I think that's the greatest comment that we can receive. Hold on to all those quotes. I think impact is also in terms of the small successes that you get when you achieve your small targets as a team, your KPIs, the small things, the small projects that you do, the collaboration that you do across departments in your own organization. I was actually thinking about this, and there was this metaphor that came to mind, and I don't know how many of you will find this resounds with you, but I think that the opening inward is like the fellowship, the FHEA. If you've done your FHEA, you'll probably know that it's all a reflection and it's all a writing about yourself in the past couple of years and things that you did and things like that. Whereas I think the reverse, the opening outside is more like the senior fellowship. I'm just beginning to write that one. So I sort of found this as a very classic example where I thought when you're talking about influencing the wider community, the higher education community, influencing your colleagues. And I thought that that was a nice metaphor and helped me to understand the opening of the doors from the inside and the outside. barriers. There will always be barriers. There will always be challenges. Nothing was ever given to us on a platter, more so for libraries. I think the cost is one of the key things. If you went and asked for some funding, I think the article processing charges. I looked for the British Journal of Cancer, an APC of $4,000. And if I looked at today's presentation, if we put this into a paper and we did some data analysis and some focus groups and some data collection, and we put this into a paper, and if we took it to the Journal of Academic Librarianship, $3,800. So thank you to this conference. Thank you for this opportunity to stand here and showcase what we think about open librarianship. Of course, there's copyright, there is licensing, but there is also things like digital inequalities. When we talk today about, we're not talking about developed and developing countries anymore. We're talking about information rich and information not so rich communities. And we can see that divide growing. And you can see other countries, and probably things like ProQuest are unaffordable today, or Science Direct or Scopus is really unaffordable today. And I think smaller institutions are having to make those very difficult decisions. And I think that information is tied down to cost, which is not open anymore. So these are some of the challenges. Obviously, ethical considerations do come in everywhere. Some of the barriers to opening to the inside are also, along with it, funding, policies, systems, but it might also be training and confidence about whether you're really okay to change. I've been in my current role just about a year now, and I'm seeing the how to balance the resistance to change in terms of small policies, and when it comes to much bigger things like, do we really need this? Every year when you come to resubscription, you're probably being asked to demonstrate data to show the ROI. I'm just getting into that phase, and I'm thinking, okay, if it's not being used, it's out. And then you go in for a lesser option. So it is that cost balance for value. But lots of other things, probably time and workload pressures. And I think one of the key things that I quote is that working around workload is a lot of work. Because when you have projects for people, you're constantly saying, do we have the time? We have to juggle this. So it's a lot of those resistance, that change, but it's also this thing of, I do want to be open in quotes, and yet it's trying to balance it all. Inclusivity and diversity in open librarianship is a big thing. Just in terms of how open are we? Is our information equal and accessible to all? So you've got the accessibility where I'm struggling sometimes to find an ebook for a very old print book, because people want larger text, and then you go through RNIB and you go through all of those options. But it's also trying to make information accessible to all. Along with that, I'm also thinking of how representative is it? I come from an institution where our students are of 88 different ethnicities, where English might not be the first language, and where students struggle with the way that the text is written. And you sometimes think maybe a diverse voice might be easier to understand. And we're still juggling with all of that, because the core text is the core text, and that will stay on the reading list for the next 20 years, unquote. We can't talk about anything in librarianship today without talking about artificial intelligence. A really good, not so good guest at the door, I think so. So we do need the chatbots because they're nice and they do some of our work for us. And yet we have this risk of how accurate and reliable that information is, along with the ethics, of course. And then it's also telling students, supporting students with how much of AI they can use. I suggest to students to use something called Goblin Tools. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. I heard it at a Lilac conference many years ago from Mahabali. And Goblin Tools is a free AI support with a number of small tools developed for neurodiverse people. But the creator said it would always stay open and free without any paywall, without any ads. Now, that's what I would call open in the true sense. What's the future of open librarianship? I wonder whether, and this is my vision, but I wonder whether we would have open librarianship as default, where everything is open, accessible, and free, where you don't have to, you can read the metadata, but you need to pay $42 to read the paper, and you can read how we did the research, but you can't read the findings because you got to pay another $24. Will it become open by default in the long run? Will that then create a a sort of really nice community of research where you would think, okay, I can do some research on my own and publish it for free? Libraries would continue to be innovation hubs. And that's what I think will happen growing forward. So that was a really lovely picture. And I wonder whether you can look at it and tell me if the doors open to the inside or the outside. But I think for open librarianship today, we open to the inside and to the outside because we balance it both. You focus on access to knowledge and you focus on participating in that. So your door is swinging open both the sides. It's also a balance, but it's also a shift. It's understanding what's the openness in the outside environment and understanding how you can be open in the inside environment as well. That's our take on open librarianship. Thank you.
Thank you.